In this video, I'm going to explain the techniques Monke Game players use to obtain double alphas in one server. I'll start by explaining the basics of getting a regular alpha, and work my way up until I explain the video that you're seeing right now. Without further ado, let's begin. Before I go over the actual process, let's first start with how an alpha is formed. If there's currently no alpha in the server, the game will spawn the alpha sample for monkeys to collect. Once they grab it, they must go and break the chemical discharge and pour the sample into the chemical filters. After which, the game will choose the most worthy player based on a few factors, and turn that player into the alpha. And if the alpha dies, the game will spawn the sample again, so that another alpha can take its place. That's just simplifying everything. Let's look into this process again, but this time, I'll explain things much more in depth. I will show two new variables, one that tells if there's an alpha on the server, and one on a chosen monkey for if they're considered an alpha. The game checks for if it can spawn the sample based on the alpha on the server value. If the value is false, the sample will respawn as normal, and won't respawn if it's set to true. When the sample gets poured, the game chooses the most experienced person in the monkey team, as well as some extra RNG to transform other potential monkeys. Once it finds that person, the script will set their alpha value to be true. Then it'll run a module script which will transform a player into the alpha. I won't go into detail as to what this script does, but the only thing you need to know is that it sets the alpha on the server value to be true. If any player dies, the game will check if their alpha value is set to true, and if it is, the game will set the alpha on the server value to be false, which allows the sample to respawn once again. In practice, this process works perfectly fine. The monkeys can only get one alpha, can only obtain one sample, and cannot do a mass ritual to summon another alpha. But of course, this video exists. Now that we know how one alpha is created, let's finally explain how the system can be bugged to obtain two or more alphas. Remember how the process is handled via two scripts? For better visualization, I'll connect both scripts together like so. The module script relies on the script that handles the alpha code to work. It will never run on its own and is essentially waiting for its signal to activate. But what if that signal never arrived? Let's cut that connection real quick and say that the script has decided on an alpha. The script sets the chosen monkey to be the alpha, and will try to relay that info to the module script. But since we cut the connection, the module script does not get the memo, and will not do its main function, including changing the alpha in the server value to be true. And because that is not set to true, the game will respawn the sample again, giving us both the sample and the alpha in the same server. But we are not done yet. Although we do have an alpha, because we never touched the module script, that means the monkey never actually transformed into an alpha. Their alpha value is set to true, but that is only used to display the crown icon to other monkeys. For clarity, I'll highlight them red to indicate that they are a fake alpha. Once you have both the fake alpha and the sample, we have another monkey take the sample and pour it. We make sure that the game runs the module script this time, so that the chosen monkey can then transform into the real alpha. This will set the alpha and the server value to be true, stopping the sample from respawning. Now we have a real and a fake alpha in the same server. Now here's the interesting part. We have the fake alpha purposely die, and the game will check their alpha value if it's set to true. It finds out that it is, and will set the alpha on the server value to be false, thinking the alpha had died. And now we have both the sample and the alpha in the same server. Now this sounds nice and all, but how are we able to disconnect both scripts in a real game? Well, fortunately, we have a glitch that can do exactly that. Here I am located at the bridge with a poison flask in my hand. I'll first drink the poison and wait a bit. Once I feel the poison is about to kick in, I proceed to jump off the bridge and have my character die. Let's wait a bit for my character to respawn. As you can see, I spawned outside of the map out of bounds. But that's not all. Let's take a look at the leaderboards for a second. You can see that my character is set to the monkey team, which means that I'm a monkey. But you may notice that I still have the human avatar, which means that I'm also human. So what is it then? Am I a human or am I a monkey? Introducing the human monkey glitch. With a well-timed death and a poison flask, you can have the game transform you into a monkey whilst already dead, respawning you into the monkey team. Although this player does look like a human, he is set to be in the monkey team. I'll show the player as a human, and I'll give them a red outline to indicate that they're a human monkey. Both spawn locations are only set to respawn players on the human team. If you respawn as a monkey, the game can't find a valid place for you to respawn, and will instead spawn you out of bounds far away from the map. Now, remember that the game checks for players from the monkey team when it chooses an alpha? Technically, you are in the monkey team, so the game sees that you are a valid candidate and can turn you into the alpha. And if it does, the game runs the first script, but will have trouble relaying the information to the module script, effectively creating the cut that we are hoping for. But now here's the thing, the human monkey spawns out of bounds falling to the void. Once they reach it, the game instantly kills the character. From respawn to death, it takes less than 3 seconds. You can't even grab the sample in that short amount of time, let alone do every other step to get double alphas. How are you able to do so much in just 3 seconds? Well, it's simple. You see the minimize button in your Roblox window? Hold click on it, and don't let go. Introducing the pause bug. By holding down the minimize button on the window, the game will essentially pause as long as you hold it down. And interestingly enough, it will also pause character movement, including the character falling. If you keep holding pause, those 3 seconds have turned into 3 minutes of stalling. That is until the game kicks you out for being too idle. However, if you unpause before a game does kick you out and pause again, you can reset that timer and stall for even longer. Whilst the human monkey is stalling, a monkey from inside the map retrieves the sample and pours it so that they will become the alpha. Once that happens, the human monkey is free to stop pausing and fall to the void to reset his character. And since the game considers the human monkey as the alpha, it will set the alpha on the server value to be false, respawning the sample again. Now that I have explained all the glitches used, let us go over the full game plan. Let's say we have 2 players, player 1 and player 2. Player 1 does a human monkey glitch, and when he respawns, he should perform the pause glitch to delay his death as much as possible. Whilst he's doing that, player 2 pours a sample and the game chooses an alpha. Now, between player 1 and player 2, player 2 is the most likely alpha candidate since they are the one that poured the sample. To avoid this, player 2 immediately rushes to the void and dies, so that the game has no choice but to turn player 1 into the alpha. Player 2 now has to rush to get the sample and pour it again, turning player 2 into the alpha. Now that player 2 has turned to the alpha, player 1 is free to void, which will tell a server to set the alpha in the server value to be false, and have the sample respawn again. Now, player 1 gets a sample and pours it in so that he becomes the alpha. And now we finally have 2 alphas in one server. With all of that said, we can finally analyze the double alphas video. Player 1, played by Larry Little, will be handling the human monkey glitch and all the pause glitching, whilst player 2, played by Moses St. Drake, will handle pouring the sample as well as most of the map navigations. Before we start, I will add a few extra things to the screen. The crown icon at the bottom of the screen indicates the player's alpha value, green if it's true, red if it's false. The icon in the middle indicates what the alpha and server value is, with the same color scheme as the crowns. We first have to do a bit of setup. Player 2 turns into a pink monkey and picks up the alpha sample beforehand to help with faster routing. He also makes sure to set chemical discharge to be 1 hit and proceeds to destroy the force field generators. Whilst he's doing that, player 1 proceeds to get the poison flask and sets himself idle close to the bridge to prepare for the human monkey. Player 2 destroys the force field generators and proceeds to pour the sample. Except he forgot to destroy a chemical discharge. Whoops! After he does pour a sample, he quickly jumps to the void so that the human monkey can become the alpha. Speaking of the human monkey, player 1 does a human monkey glitch by drinking the poison flask and dying just before a poison kicks in, causing him to become the human monkey. All player 1 has to do now is stall for as much time as possible to not fall into the void. For this strat to be consistent, I made sure to use a timer as shown in the bottom left to time my pauses as optimally as possible. Back then, it was previously taught that 10 seconds was the maximum time to stall until Roblox kicks you, so I unpause every 10 seconds and immediately pause right after. This POV is pretty boring, so let's switch to player 2 instead. Player 2 spawns in a secondary spawn, which is very unoptimal because that means he'll have to walk a longer distance to get to the sample. You can actually prevent this by destroying the secondary generators, so that the game will spawn you at main instead. I had it set to low HP during the setup time, but I guess Drake must have broke the main generator too early, which called for a reroute. Whilst heading to the sample, player 2 proceeds to clip through a sliding door and both vents using the laugh clip, so that he can maneuver himself through the main spawn into the greenhouse. There is no reason for him to do this, just going the forward route would have been much faster and less prone to mistakes. But I guess Drake wanted to showcase his awesome cool laugh clipping skills. Player 2 enters the sample lab and obtains the sample just before the force fields could repair themselves. From his POV, you can actually see the alpha crown out of bounds. This crown always shows to players with their alpha value set to true. Since my value is set to true, you can see exactly where I am from inbounds. After a while, player 2 comes back to the chemical discharge room and pours a sample, making the game choose him as the alpha. This sets the alpha on the server value to be true. Now I can stop pause glitching and have my character fully fall to the void, causing the alpha on the server value to be set back to false, respawning the sample again. Now it's just a matter of breaking the force fields again and having player 1 pour a sample instead, which I will skip since we just obtain and pour the sample normally. And there we go! That is how you obtain 2 alphas in one server. Thank you all for watching my explanation.